Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss about debt equity ratio. Debt equity ratio is one of the ratio that comes under solvency ratio. So let us discuss what is meant by solvency ratio. Solvency ratio is one of the functional ratio which helps to determine the solvency position of a company. What is meant by solvency position? Solvency position is the ability of a firm to meet its long term obligations, that is, long term debt, debentures, bonds, long term borrowings, etc. So, solvency is the ability of a firm to meet the long term obligation of a firm. So, there are so much of ratios that comes under solvency ratios, like proprietary ratio, overall solvency ratio, fixed assets to net worth ratio, and one of the important solvency ratio is debt equity ratio. Now let us discuss about debt equity ratio. What is debt equity ratio? It is the ratio showing the relationship between long term debt and shareholders fund. We know that in a company, the company can raise the capital from long term debt and shareholders fund. Shareholders funds are owners fund and long term debts are borrowed fund. So debt equity ratio shows the relationship between borrowed fund and loaned fund. Okay, so this ratio expresses the relationship between external equity and internal equity. What is external equity? External equity is the debt and internal equity is shareholders fund. So the ratio which is used to calculate debt equity ratio is debt by equity. Here, debt include only the long term debt, that is, short term debts or current liabilities are not part of this debt equity ratio. Here we take only the long term debt and shareholders fund. So the ratio will be long term debt and shareholders fund. Now let us discuss what all our items comes under shareholders fund and long term debt. We know that shareholders fund are owned fund, that is the capital fund, that is the owners fund, it is own fund, own equity. What all are items that we taken in owners fund, that is a shareholders fund? It is calculated by adding share capital, reserves and surplus minus accumulated losses. So shareholders fund can be found out by adding share capital and the reserves and surplus. In share capital, we will take both the equity capital and the preference share capital. Share capital plus reserves and surplus minus accumulated losses. Whether there is a profit and loss, debit balance, preliminary expenses, or a discount on issue of shares, all such items will be deducted to get the shareholders fund. And second one is long term debt. Oh, what is the long term? We know that long term debt includes long term borrowings and long term provisions. Long term borrowings include long term loans, debentures, bonds, etc. All these are taken by the company from externals, from the outside. So that is considered as external liabilities, and that is a loan fund, that is a borrowed fund. So the one of the major ratio comes under solvency ratio is debt equity ratio, that shows the relationship between debt and equity, that is long term debt and shareholders fund. Now let us discuss a problem with regarding this debt equity ratio, and here is the problem. Here we given some items, that is these are the items from balance sheet, and what are the items given are share capital 5 lakhs, reserves and surplus 2 lakh 20,000, long term borrowings 2 lakh 40,000, current liabilities 1 lakh 40,000, long term provisions 1 lakh, Non-current assets 7,60,000 and current assets 4,40,000. We study that debt equity ratio can be found out by using long-term debt and shareholders fund. So from these items, we have to compute what all items are comes under long-term debt and shareholders fund. Uh, Let us discuss that. Here, long-term debt includes long-term borrowings and long-term provisions. Other items are not comes under long-term debt. Here, long-term borrowings amount is 2,40,000 and the long-term provision is 1 lakh. So the total long-term debt is 3,40,000. And the shareholders fund include here share capital, reserves and surplus, and other items, current liabilities, non-current assets, current assets. All these items are not comes under whether long-term debt or shareholders fund. So the shareholders fund include share capital and reserves and surplus, and the total amount will be 7,20,000. By using this formula, we get 3,40,000 divided by 7,20,000. The answer will be 0.47 is to 1. 0.47 is to 1. So the ideal ratio for debt equity ratio is 2 is to 1. That is, if there is 1 lakh shareholders fund, the optimum amount that can be raised from long term debt will be 2 lakhs, up to 2 lakhs. That is why the ideal ratio comes as 2 is to 1. And higher the ratio shows better position for the shareholders. That means that if the ratio increases above 2 is to 1, that is, if the ratio comes as 3 is to 1 or 5 is to 1, what it means? It means that the company is using more debt, long-term debt, than the shareholders fund. So it is favorable for shareholders. That is, it will help the using of more long-term fund in the capital structure will magnify the earnings of shareholders. It will increase, it will help the shareholders to increase their EPS, earning per share. If the company is going in a better condition, that is, the company has the good profitability condition, the position will be good. If the ratio will be lesser than 2 is to 1, it is unfavorable to shareholders, that it doesn't magnify their earnings, it doesn't increase their EPS. So the apt or ideal debt equity ratio is 2 is to 1. Up to 2 is to 1, the company can raise long term fund. The company can use twice the amount of shareholders fund as the long term fund. That is the ideal position. It will help in the capital structure. The company can use more debt, that will help them to increase earning per share, that will increase their earnings or earning per share. So one of the important ratio used to find out the solvency ratio is debt equity ratio. So let us rewind something, that debt equity ratio is the proportion between long term debt and shareholders fund. So thank you. I hope you all understand this. Thank you.